Imagine a crown so heavy it tilts your head forward, not from gold, but from the years it promises to take from you. The incense burns thick in the air, clinging to your throat like invisible hands. Stone walls stretch high above, cold and damp, swallowing the echo of every whispered prayer. The cathedral is full. Lords in embroidered cloaks, ladies shimmering in silk, all eyes turn toward you. They see pearls threaded through your braids. They see the gold-stitched lions across your skirts. They see the girl who will keep the bloodline pure. They don't see the knots in your stomach. The gown presses into your ribs. Its embroidery scratches against your skin. Each pearl in your hair feels like another stone on the scales that will decide your life. You walk slowly, because the weight demands it, because they told you slow steps look regal. Somewhere beyond the altar, your husband waits, Lord Corvinus, tall and silent, with eyes that never quite meet yours, twice your age, your cousin, a man who has spoken to you only in formal greetings. Before we go further into this forgotten story, before we pull back the silk to show what it hides, I'll ask you to join me. Subscribe so you won't miss the histories they tried to keep quiet. The ones whispered in corridors, buried in archives, written between the lines. The music swells as you reach him. His gloved hand takes yours, dry and cold. The priest begins his blessing, voice rolling like distant thunder. You try to listen, but the words turn to fog, vows about honour, obedience, and children yet unborn. You hear the crowd murmur approval, as if they're watching a play they've seen many times before. A shaft of light cuts through the stained glass, setting the gold threads on your gown ablaze. For a moment, you are a holy image, a young queen at the altar, blessed by heaven. And yet, you feel only the pinch of the ring sliding onto your finger, a circle that feels more like a shackle. Corvinus leans closer, his breath carrying the faint scent of wine. "Smile," he murmurs, just loud enough for you to hear. Your lips obey before your heart does. You glance toward the crowd, the nobles, the courtiers, the family members nodding in approval. They see a picture of grace. They see a girl stepping into destiny. Only you know the truth. You're stepping into a room without doors. The blessing ends. The kiss is quick, mechanical. Applause fills the cathedral like rushing water, but it doesn't reach you. All you hear is the steady beat of your own heart, counting down to something you can't yet name. You walk back down the aisle on his arm, the weight of the gown dragging behind you, each step rehearsed in 100 lessons on poise and control. Outside, the winter air bites your cheeks, but you keep smiling because that is what they want. And so you give them your first, the smile you've practiced in the mirror until it no longer belongs to you. This smile that will keep them from looking too closely. The smile that hides the truth they will never ask for. The smile that will one day be the last thing they see. The days after the wedding blur into a pattern you can feel before you even see it. Morning light through high windows, a handmaid's quiet knock, layers of fabric and jewels fitted to your frame like armour you never asked for. Lady Marceline appears each day at the same hour, moving into your chambers like a shadow you can't step out of. She studies you the way a painter studies a canvas, searching for flaws, then correcting them without asking if they are flaws to you. Chin higher, shoulders back. When you greet someone, let your smile rise slowly, as if it is meant for them alone. You do as she says. You learn quickly that refusal is not an option. She corrects your voice, lowering it into a soft, careful tone. No sharp edges, she tells you. Men hear sharpness as challenge. She trains you to let a pause sit between your words, long enough to seem thoughtful, short enough to avoid suspicion. Meals become lessons too. how to touch the goblet so your fingers seem delicate, how to chew without the movement disturbing your jawline, how to set down a spoon without a sound. You're told that silence is the language of grace. You begin to understand that silence is also the language of survival. But when the lessons end, the nights begin. Corvinus comes to your chambers with the same expression he wears at court, impassive, calculated. He speaks of duty as if it is a shared oath, but the way he touches you makes it clear the burden is yours alone. His words are practical, stripped of any tenderness, focused only on the airs you must give him. He never asks if you are cold, or tired, or afraid. You learn to keep your eyes on the carved canopy above your bed, tracing the spirals in the wood until his weight lifts from you. You listen to the sound of his boots crossing the floor, the click of the latch, the fading steps down the corridor. In public, you are the perfect picture they want you to be. You sit beside him at feasts, your hands folded, your eyes bright. You laugh at his rare jokes, bow your head when he speaks. Guests compliment your beauty, your composure. You thank them as if it is a gift you chose, not a mask you wear. Lady Marceline nods in approval from across the hall. You have learned well. You can now endure humiliation without a flicker. You can stand in the middle of a room and feel your insides burning, and no one will see the smoke. You start counting the moments when you are truly alone. They are few, a handful of breaths in the bath. A short pause between one gown being removed and another being laced. In those moments you hear your own heartbeat, loud and steady, reminding you that you're still here. On the coldest night yet, you sit before the mirror, unpinning the pearls from your hair. Each pin slides free with a soft metallic sigh. Your reflection looks like a stranger wearing your skin. You practice the smile Lady Marceline has taught you until your lips ache. Then, quietly, without looking away from your own eyes, you speak the words aloud for the first time. They will not hear me break. You learn it on the first morning you try to be alone. The sun has barely broken through the mist when the door to your chamber opens without warning. A maid glides in with a basin of water, setting it down as if you're invisible. She does not meet your eyes, does not ask permission. She leaves, and moments later, another servant appears with folded linen. Then another with trays of food you didn't order. The rhythm becomes familiar. The doors here are not meant to close to you. They are meant to open to everyone else. There are no locks on the inside, only latches that click softly and can be lifted from either side. Privacy, you realise, is not part of your station. By the second week, you have stopped flinching when the door moves. That is when Prince Lucien begins to visit. He arrives without announcement, always at dusk, when the light slants low and the shadows climb the walls. His smile is easy, his voice warm, but his eyes roam in ways that make you wish for the cold gaze of your husband instead. He walks around you as he speaks, as though measuring something only he understands. He asks about your days, your gowns, your meals. His questions are harmless in sound, but they feel like the touch of fingers on a bruise. One evening he lifts a strand of your hair and studies it in the light. "You're part of the family now," he says, letting it fall. "No need for formality." You tell him you're tired. He lingers anyway. When you confess it to Father Armand, his hands twitch against the rosary. He does not ask for details, only listens in heavy silence. Then, in a voice that seems to carry the weight of every secret he has ever been told, he warns you. Truth can be more dangerous than sin. Choose which you wish to survive. It is Sabine who begins to teach you how. She moves quietly, her presence small enough to pass unnoticed by the rest of the household. She does not ask questions when you slip folded paper into her hand, or when you ask her to hide a brooch, a ribbon, a letter. She knows which cupboards are never searched, which floorboards lift without noise. Her eyes meet yours only when the room is empty. In those glances, you feel the unspoken oath of one prisoner to another. You start to notice the eyes. They're everywhere. In the half-open doors along the gallery, in the mirrors angled toward corridors, in the stillness of servants who seem to pause just long enough to hear. You walk the halls with your back straight, every step measured, every gesture deliberate. The wrong movement, the wrong glance, could become a story before the hour changes. At night, when you lie in bed, you listen for the sound of the latch. You learn to tell the difference between the cautious slide of Sabine's entry and the slow, deliberate push of another who does not care if you hear. You sleep in fragments, waking at the creak of the floorboards, at the faint scent of someone else's perfume in the dark, and in the stillness. Before dawn, you understand the truth. In this place, even the shadows have keys. They know before you do. It begins with the sudden way the midwife lingers after her inspection, how her eyes dart to Lady Marceline, how her hands fold neatly as if sealing a secret. By the time they tell you, the household has already begun its quiet preparations. A larger bedchamber, more servants, endless trays of food you cannot stomach. "You've done your duty," Corvinus says that evening, though his voice carries no joy, only satisfaction. He does not touch you as a husband might. He places his hand flat against your abdomen, as if confirming a claim. From that moment, your body is no longer yours. You're blessed by priests whose hands rest too long on your belly. You're paraded at feasts where strangers lean close to murmur prayers, their breath warm against your ear. Every movement is monitored. The way you sit, the way you stand, even the way you climb the shallow steps to your chair. The air around you thickens with the expectation that you will not stumble, will not falter, will not let the future of the bloodline slip. But the sickness comes quickly. It coils in your stomach, turns bread to ash on your tongue. You wake in the night to a rush of heat across your skin, sweat cooling in the winter air. Your back aches until you cannot draw a full breath. When you speak of it, they smile as if you are a child complaining of chores. Lady Marceline visits every morning to remind you that all noble women suffer. She tells you that the ache in your bones will make you stronger, that the dizziness is proof the child is taking root, that to complain is to insult the generations of women who endured more. You learn to be silent. Each day is an audience. Even in your own chambers, you feel the eyes of the court pressing against the walls. You rest your hands in your lap so no one sees them tremble. You train your face into serenity, even when a sharp cramp bends you in half beneath the table. Sometimes, in the quiet between visits, you press your palm hard against your stomach, as if you can touch the life inside. It is not affection you feel, not yet. It is the unsettling knowledge that this child is both part of you and the thing that binds you tighter to them. The palace speaks of you now as if you are a reliquary, an object holding something sacred. They forget that you are flesh, that you bleed, that your nights are filled with the sound of your own breathing, shallow and afraid. On the longest night of winter, you wake to the cold seeping through the mattress. The moonlight cuts a pale line across your belly. You lay both hands there, fingers splayed, holding yourself together. And in a whisper, meant for no one but the life within, you breathe the truth you cannot say aloud. I don't know if I want to meet you. The first pain arrives like a knell. The room narrows to a ring of faces. Midwives murmur. Someone closes the shutters. Someone heats water. You grip the sheet until your fingers cramp, as if linen can anchor you to a world that keeps pulling back. Hours fold. Sweat pools, then chills. Hands smooth your hair, then pry your knees apart. Voices blur, then sharpen. Push, breathe, again. You're not brave. You're a body in pieces trying to remember its name. By nightfall, the midwives whisper about blood and fever. Lady Marceline stands in the doorway like a carved figure. You must not frighten the household, she says. Pain is a right, she says. She says nothing about mercy. Outside, Corvinus waits in the antechamber. Through the wall, you hear him discussing the child's name and tutors. He does not ask to enter. He does not ask if you're still here beneath the noise. The second night drops like a curtain. Your teeth chatter though the room is hot. You taste metal and wonder if you've bitten your own prayer. A midwife presses cloth to your mouth. Another counts the space between waves of pain until there is no space at all. They send for Father Amend just in case. He comes with rain on his cloak and silence in his eyes. When they try to usher him out, he stays, folding your hand into his. His fingers are cool. He whispers what the others never do. You're not alone. Then the room tilts. A shout. A command you cannot follow. Pressure, tearing, sudden absence. A hollow where everything was. A cry rises, thin and alive, and the sound is so foreign it takes a moment to understand its meaning. You try to lift your head. You ask to see, but the word never forms. Hands move quickly, practiced, distant. The child is wrapped and carried toward the door. A midwife says the air here is stale. Another says the light is wrong. Reasons that are not reasons. The cry fades down the corridor. You ask again with your eyes. No one answers. Lady Marceline orders stillness. Corvinus's voice returns, already speaking of lineage. He approves the nurse he has not met. Father Armand bows his head and prays aloud. When he finishes, he leans close. I will look for him, he says, so quietly you wonder if you imagined it. Then the women wash you and stitch you, the needle rising and falling with brutal patience, as if closing a seam in a garment that must be worn again. Morning creeps in. Your body feels like a room after a storm. The bed smells of iron and lavender. The midwives speak of rest. Lady Marceline says the child is safe in another household for his protection. She calls it prudence. You call it theft, but only inside your skull. The record will say you recovered. It will list the hour of labour and the priest who gave precautionary rites. It will not mention how your voice has gone like smoke through a broken flue. It will not mention the ring of emptiness where a cry once was. Father Armand returns at dusk with nothing in his hands. He tells you to drink water, to sleep. Before he leaves, he presses a small cross into your palm and closes your fingers around it. The household quiets. Footsteps fade. The shutters rattle. You lie still and count the stitches, each knot a nail. Somewhere, a child breathes air that should have touched your skin. When sleep finally comes, it is not rest. It is only a cave. You enter without a lamp. You do not call for light. You have no voice to call with. You go where the silence sends you, leaving the world behind like a garment folded on a chair, still warm yet empty. It starts with listening. Not the kind they taught you, the polite nods, the feigned interest at court. This is the deeper kind, the kind that catches what people mean when they don't mean to say it. You sit still while the room moves around you. You let the silence stretch until someone fills it with something they shouldn't have said. Sabine is your shadow now. She carries more than trays and folded gowns. She carries fragments of other people's lives. Which footman is in debt to the gaming tables? Which maid has a cousin in the stables who talks too much after wine? Which priest locks his chamber door before pouring a drink he swore to God he'd given up? The palace is full of cracks, and you learn to press your ear to each one. At first, the whispers you send out are small, harmless even. A comment about a missing jewel that finds its way into the wrong ear. A reminder that Lady Marceline has been requesting more credit from the goldsmith than she should. You let them move like smoke, slow, curling, easy to dismiss until the smell lingers in every room. Corvinus still takes your arm at feasts, he still sits you beside him at council. But you feel the shift in the way people glance at him now, how their eyes slide away a second too soon. A cousin remembers a rumour that his birth certificate was altered. A nobleman hesitates before offering him a toast. No one names you. You're still the perfect wife. You never raise your voice. You never accuse. But the people you touch with your words begin to look over their shoulders. Sabine is careful. She delivers each whisper to the right ear, the one that will not keep it to itself. She times her errand so she passes the guards just as they're changing shifts, the moment when they're eager to speak to anyone. She trades scraps of lace, half-empty perfume bottles, even your old gloves, for the kind of stories that do not appear in court records. By winter, the air feels different, not colder, sharper. You catch Lady Marceline watching the door before she speaks now. Corvinus's brother leaves letters unopened on his desk, as if afraid of what they contain. Servants pause mid-task when you enter, unsure whether your presence is coincidence or calculation. You do not hurry the work. You let it grow at its own pace, like rot behind a wall. You understand now that revenge is not fire. It is slow water, seeping into places no one checks until the foundation starts to sink. At night, you lie awake, remembering the months when you had no voice, the lessons in silence, the chamber without locks, the body they claimed as theirs. You think of how easy it would have been to disappear inside it all, how close you came, but you did not vanish. You waited, you listened, you learned their weaknesses and wore your mask until it became a weapon. In the mirror you practiced the smile Lady Marceline taught you years ago. It is still perfect, but now it is yours. You will not need a dagger. You will not need to raise your hand. By the time they realize what you have taken from them, they will have no one left to tell. The scandal arrives like winter fog, slow and certain. By the time anyone notices, the walls of Corvinus's world are damp and crumbling. An accusation appears in a letter without a signature, then in the mouth of a counsellor, then in records that do not quite match. Illegitimacy, forged proofs, a priest who suddenly remembers the wrong date. No one points at you. Corvinus denies everything. He moves through the palace with the stiff grace of a man wearing armour he can no longer carry. He summons allies who now forget they owe him. You stand beside a column, calm, hands folded, the stillness they once mistook for obedience. You do not speak. You do not need to. People stop speaking for him. By spring he has lost 2 titles and a third hangs by a thread. Money drains. Favours go unpaid. A courier misplaces a sealed message and a rival opens it. At table, toasts to his health grow shorter. He still reaches for your arm as if habit could save him. You let him. Habit never saved you. Lady Marceline pretends not to see the cracks. She hosts feasts as if plenty could drown suspicion, ordering more wine and more musicians. She watches the door between courses. She's always watched doors. One evening the cup she lifts is sweet, then bitter, then still in her hand as her gaze finds you across the room. Surprise, then certainty, then nothing at all. They call it a misfortune. They call it a weak heart. They do not call it justice. You wear black silk. It moves like water around you. In the great hall, banners hang low and the air holds a hush that is almost reverent. You stand where sunlight from the high windows breaks across the floor in pale squares, and you smile the smile you learned as a child. It fits your face in a new way now. It answers to you. Sabine stands at your shoulder, older, careful, steady as a doorframe. Father Armand walks more slowly than before, but his hands are sure when he takes yours, when he murmurs that he has seen the child and the child is strong. You close your eyes at those words, For a heartbeat, the years fold and you're a room stitched in pain, reaching for a cry that fades down a corridor. Then the present returns with the steady weight of your breath. Corvinus is not exiled. Exile would be mercy. He is left to live here, to walk these rooms while people step around him as around a stain that will not lift. He learns to sit with silence. He learns the taste of absence. When he passes you in the gallery, he stops, as if there is something he could still ask for. You incline your head. He bows and moves on. The house changes. Voices lower when you enter, not from fear but from recognition. They see you now as you should have been seen, not a reliquary, not a vessel, but the axis of the room. Your words are rare. They land like pins on silk. The fabric holds. What you built was patient and invisible, a lattice of small truths that cut deeper than any blade ever could. On an evening of clear wind and long light, you go to the window at the far end of the hall where the glass shivers against the old stone. Banners lift. Somewhere, a bell counts the hour and then is silent. Black silk brushes your ankles. You tilt your head as if listening to the girl you were, the one who practiced smiles and learned doors that only opened one way. You raise your hand to the glass. It is cool now. You breathe, and the breath fogs for a moment, then clears. "I never screamed," you whisper. "I didn't need to."